Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. It's my first visit to Lubin House. And so far it's been very impressive. Thanks, Angela, for organizing everything. And to all of you for coming on a Thursday evening. Sort of hearing me talk about stressors. And I'm sure you probably can talk more than I can about what this means in your lives. So let's start by going through this. I wanted to add that in addition to working in the Department of Psychology, I also work in the Burton Blatt Institute. It is a new institute at Syracuse University. It perhaps was not there when you were there. It is an institute that works on issues of disability. So I work with both places. And today we'll talk about stress at work for Latinos and African Americans. So briefly, I want to review a few of the things that I would like us to discuss and talk about today. And one is, why is there interest in this topic? I know why I'm interested, and I'd like to hear also why are you interested in this topic. We'll also talk about some of the stressors that have been uncovered in my research, the research I do with a lot of different collaborators, and the research that other people have been doing. Then I'd like to talk specifically about how these stressors at work are related to our well-being, to our personal well-being, and to our family well-being. And finally, I would like to pose the question of what could or should be done to deal with this, to address these issues. And I would like us to think about this beyond our domain of action, to think also of policies that could be done. All right, so first let me do some acknowledgments in terms of the research, because this work I'm be presenting today is linked to the work of other people that have come before me. And one of them is Diane Hughes, who is a professor at NYU, and she gave me access to this wonderful data set that was collected through the MacArthur Foundation, and it's a survey of urban ethnic minorities, and it was done in Chicago and in New York City. I also have to give thanks to people from the New Hope Child and Family Study, and those individuals are a long list of names, but I'm going to mention only a few now. These are Aletha Houston, she's at the University of Texas, Tom Weisner, who is an anthropologist, and he's responsible for the qualitative or ethnographic component of this study. He's in UCLA. Hiro Yoshikawa, who used to be in NYU, now it's in Harvard. MDRC, which is in New York City. It's the Manpower Demonstration Research Corporation, and many other researchers involved in this project. I also have to thank SU undergraduate research assistants, and one of them is here today, Dion, who worked with me analyzing this data. And then finally, the last project I'm going to draw on as I talk with you about stressors at work is a study that I did at Syracuse University with working mothers. And I know that we have some women here who work at SU right now that have children, and you didn't get to participate in my study. I need to redo some of it to include you. And for this project, I had the help of several students in particular. My dear Dion is here. She's my first on the list. Naoko Hashimoto, Julie Fitt, Mingyin Lee, and Ashley Goldstein also helped me with this particular study. And before I move to the other one, I said research acknowledgments to sound very professional, so I didn't include one that includes my personal acknowledgments to my husband, who's sitting almost on front row here, Derek Cockburn, and to my family. I have Courtney, my sister-in-law, here today too. So it's wonderful when you have familiar faces, right, in your audience. And now I have other familiar faces since I got to meet some of you a few minutes before we started. All right. So why the interest in this topic? And let me remind you what the topic is: the stress factors that affect African Americans and Latinos in the workplace, and as it was listed on your invitations, that affect us, right? So it's about what do we think and how do we experience this. All right, so one of those things that interests me is the fact that work seems to be such a dominant aspect of life. It's almost as if you grow up to do just that. You need to work. What do you want to do when you grow up? It's probably one of the first questions you get when you're little. In addition to others that get the question, how many girls do you what do you want to be when you grow up? And what I have here is this idea with these pictures. I'm trying to be creative here to show that when people are at work, like these two gentlemen are typing in this laptop, it is so dominant that the idea of being leisurely somewhere in the Caribbean, I'm from Puerto Rico, so it could be Puerto Rico or some other island, Hawaii, maybe Pacific. It is very hard sometimes to get that little break. So it's just a dream. Work dominates everything. It's the whole structure of your life is about how many days you have to work, how many hours, and impressing others. So sometimes you work a little extra so that you look good in your job, and this dream of the other part of you sort of gets pushed to the side. And I see a gentleman back there nodding. Is that happening in your life too? All right. So that's one of the reasons I'm interested in this, because work is such a central part of our lives. Another reason I'm interested in the topic today is because historically, in the labor force in the United States, the involvement of people of color has been very significant. And sometimes this doesn't seem to be acknowledged. And one of the ways in which you can see it's not acknowledged is that when you look at research about the effect of work on well-being, those things that I mentioned earlier that I'm interested in, there seems to be this absence of these particular ethnic groups in that literature, in that research. So how come they are part of that workforce, have been historically, yet seem to be overlooked? Another piece of historical information is that African American mothers, for instance, when you look at the rates of participation in the labor force of that group, they have a very high rate of participation compared to Caucasian women, let's say, who also have children of the same age. Usually that big difference is seen when you're talking about very small children, under 6 years old. African American women have been seen over time to be going back to the labor force after having children very quickly, whereas Caucasian women only recently have we started to see that they are going back to the workforce also that soon. And what that means is that that literature about work and family and how those two worlds collide or coincide is missing that group. And in the 70s, when Caucasian women started participating more in the workforce, women who had children, then scholars were interested, oh, how come mothers are working and what does that mean for the family? But all along, all these other women had been having children and working. So that's one of those little facts of things that get overlooked. And then the other piece that gets overlooked is what is the experience of people in low-wage jobs? Economists do pay attention to that group a lot. Sociologists do the same. But in my field, more in psychology, they seem to be overlooked more. It's almost as if the population of interest is those that have careers that are prestigious and people who have those sort of aspirations. But people who are in low-wage jobs, the custodians, the people who do the cleaning, the cooking, the food service people, they seem to be overlooked. Now I have a little graph showing, as of 2000 in the census, what was the distribution of these different ethnic breakdowns in the labor force. And it says here that 73% were whites at the time, and the rest are either African American,